when I was in college, I had an assignment to read 3 books at the same time. 1984, Brave New World, 2 classics, and then this book, Amusing Ourselves to Death. And this book is about how our culture, this was written, I think published maybe in 1984, somewhere around there. It's about how in our culture today, or back then, 30, 40 years ago, we were seeing things play out more the way they did in Brave New World than they did in 1984. And the difference, in 1984, the government was oppressive with trickery, yes, but mostly with force. It was more of a forceful control. It was your typical, it was modeled after like communist things that were going on in the world at the time, I believe. I could be wrong on that. I'm pretty sure that's what George Orwell has said in some past interview. But regardless, there's all this physical stuff, and it's a very like forceful kind of oppression. In Brave New World, it's different. It's a sinister oppression. It gets you, and you like it. You're in prison and you want to be in that prison. Aldous Huxley called this Brave New World. Aldous Huxley is the author of Brave New World, and he called that novel an allegory of something called the ultimate revolution. This is not a good thing. The ultimate revolution was nonviolent, consented population control. So here's Aldous Huxley in his own words describing what ultimate revolution is. It's this method of control by which a people can be made to enjoy a state of affairs which by any decent standard they ought not to enjoy, the enjoyment of servitude. So you see why I call it sinister, I hope, because it's like, here's pleasure, and here's security, and here's comfort, but in return, you have to be in prison. And so it's this nonviolent, consented population control. We're controlled, but we consent to it because we want the pleasure, and we want the comfort. And so they don't even need to use violence to control us anymore. It's kind of creepy. This was a quote from, basically a thinker, a writer, an author. I think he was a poet as well, from, 200, 300 years ago, probably around the early Enlightenment period. I'm not 100% sure on the history of this guy, but none are more hopelessly enslaved than those who falsely believe they are free. So that's this ultimate revolution. It's like, I have everything I want, but I'm not free. And in this kind of situation, it's really hard. It's really hard how do you get out of a situation like that, right? And this ultimate thing with the power having this kind of control has, as far as we know, never happened in history until now. Maybe with like the bread and circuses in the Roman culture. But this really just avert control through pleasure as opposed to control through violence and force. It's just the tricky thing about it is that rebellion fails because most people don't want to bother rebelling. Most people are going to say, you know what? No, I like my pleasure. I just want to live this life of amusement, and I got entertainment. I can just sit in front of the TV, tune in and tune out and eat my potato chips, and I'm good. I don't need any more than that, and I don't care if I have freedom. So it's we have this kind of dichotomy, We have the corrupt system, and if you want to be in the corrupt system, then you get safety, pleasure, honor, you get distraction, you get approval, you have a common enemy, and you have a chance at success. And if you're outside of the system, you don't get any of that stuff, really. You do, but you don't get it in such stimulating doses. But you have freedom. And so that's the choice, the corrupt system or freedom. In the system, you get all this stuff. Out of the system, that's not really guaranteed. So it's not an easy choice, right? For me, I think about solidarity with all of the humans throughout history. I kind of want to live the way humans have always lived, because then I know I'm not alone in a sense. I'm living the way. I'm living the way that everybody did before me until this ultimate revolution. So if we did decide that we wanted freedom instead of pleasure and comfort and honor and all that stuff, if we wanted to escape the corrupt system, how do you get out of a system like that? It's easy and it's hard. So subversion is the kind of the word. If you look at that word subversion, it's like basically means an underversion or an underground. It means deciding not to play by the corrupt rules. Undermining, rather than overthrowing, because if you can't get a significant portion of the population, or if the power is too great, then rebelling does no good. Like, they have all the weaponry in the world, and that's force, and then they're giving us all this pleasure, and if you want to rebel, you don't even, what chance is, it's just it just seems almost completely pointless, right? So subversion, it's not rebelling, it's not overthrowing, it's undermining, it's being within or below. And so you're in the same system, and this isn't without struggles, by the way. Like I said, you're giving up a lot to do this, but it's the only way to freedom. Most people are going to choose security and an amusement and that endless stream of entertainment over freedom. And with subversion, that is okay. The beauty of subversion is that you don't need everyone, or even most people, like you do with a rebellion. You can start right now with just yourself. So how does that work? How do you begin subverting the system? Maybe another term for this is, how do you escape the rat race? You begin with yourself by dedicating time each day to be present with your emotions. I know that sounds like, wait, you just brought Mr. Rogers into this? You dedicate time each day to being present with your emotions. What does that mean? It means feeling what you're feeling, not trying to fix what you're feeling. Maybe I feel anxious, and not trying to take a pill to relieve the anxiety or to do anything. Just being with that anxiety. Maybe if I'm doing anything, it's exploring it, like looking at the anxiety, being curious about it. And that's what this being present with your emotions means. And why would that do any good though? How would that subvert the system? Oh, by the way, when you're doing this, exploring or being present with your emotions and your inner self, you want to be away from social media, away from technology, away from stimulation, away from books even, and even people. Just this time, give yourself, it doesn't have to be more than a couple minutes a day, but it's time where you're just present with yourself, all of your emotions, the pleasant and the difficult ones. And basically what you can find then is you can find what you're feeling and understand what your emotions are pointing to. If you don't understand what your emotions are pointing to, then you're in the system. You're in the corrupt system, because the corrupt system's biggest goal is to keep you distracted so that you don't look at your feelings. Hey, look at this news story. This is why the world's going to crap. Hey, look at what Trump did. Hey, look at what Harris did. Hey, look at what Biden did. Hey, look at this thing over here. Hey, look at that thing over there. Just don't look at yourself. If you feel something, if you feel anything, take this pill. That's the whole underlying message that you get when you watch TV. Just put on any news station for, 20 minutes, and that's what you'll see. Look at this over here. Look at that over there. Look at that over there. Don't look at yourself. If you think about looking at yourself, or you feel yourself a little bit, take this medicine. It'll be better. Or buy this other thing, whatever. And so by stepping away from that and being present with yourself, you're not distracted, and then you can see things, and there's some scary things inside you, anxiety, that's kind of scary. Some anger, there might be like some grief that you've never approached or dealt with that is just piled up. And so it can be very difficult. But, and I want to give some tips I think that I think are really useful for dealing with that. But I just want to say, if you're faithful to the practice and you practice with some faith, like some trust that, it's going to be okay. You're going to find strength within you. You're going to find the freedom from the need for the system or for the distractions to distract you, because you'll learn to just be present with whatever you're feeling. And through that, you're going to find a lot of wisdom and inner peace. And so one way to kind of make this easier to sit with yourself, within us, we have an inner companion. We have an inner core part of ourselves. We have many parts. Look at just look up anything about internal family systems therapy, and or just Jungian analysis. We have archetypes within us. We have feelings. Essentially, we have personas, which are essentially personalities. We have many personalities within us, many persons, many parts. We're kind of a family, all in ourself. Hence why it's called internal family systems. But so what we can do is we can build up a relationship with what I like to call the inner companion. And basically it's a stabilizing hand to hold as you encounter your life and yourself. So as you encounter difficult emotions or difficult people, even in your life, you can kind of keep shifting your attention. If your attention's not being constantly shifted to a million other things for you by something else, you can get in the practice of shifting your attention from that difficult thing and being present with that, and then giving yourself a little bit of reprieve by being present with that inner well, that inner companion, and then going back, and you have that. It's like I said, it's like a hand to hold through that. And then as you sit with or explore difficult feelings, continually returning your thoughts as needed to this inner companion, favorite story character, a good memory of a loved one, a positive role model. These are all persons, right? But they're in you. They're in your memory. They're in your mind, and you can, and because they're in you, they can draw up positive feelings or positive thoughts, positive views, and you can use that. You can draw from within this really powerful strength. And as you build this up, you can actually build up your ability to be present with others, because the difficult things about being present with others, it's the same difficulties as being present with yourself. It's like dealing with difficult emotions, the anger, or figuring out the right boundaries, or how to get every part on board to the same goal. It's the same thing with relationships, outer relationships, as it is with inner relationships. And so as you deal with inner relationships, you become practiced at dealing with the outer relationships. And then you can be present with others, with the same stuff, without needing to fix them, without needing to avoid them, without needing to give in or try and please them, try and get their approval, without needing to lie. You can just be more honest and be more yourself. And then once we have that, you've subverted the system. You have the freedom, because that's all it takes. Like, the system is not forcing you in, there's no force there. There is some force because of the price of land right now and everything. Like, the land prices, the wealth gap is massive, and it's like almost impossible for somebody to actually just buy land and sustain themselves the way that a human being could have for the past millions of years of human history. So that's kind of weird. That's like a whole nother level of oppression, or just a systemic problem, right? But at least you can subvert that system of distraction, that ultimate revolution. And then here's where it gets, where we can get to the point of approaching these bigger problems, like this problem that I can't just buy land and sustain myself even after I've worked for a long time. You just can't. There's this big gap of people who own everything and people who don't. And these people who don't there's this huge leap. They just can't. It's too big of a gap. So then what we can do, once we become better at being present with ourselves, we become better at being present with others. And when we can be present with others, we can build true, good, loving relationships. And then we can create what Vaclav Havel called parallel structures. So Vaclav Havel was he was a playwright, and then he was an essayist during communist rule, and I believe it was in Czechoslovakia. And he later became the president of Czechoslovakia. He's a political writer. When he was doing his essays, he wrote a very well-known one called The Power of the Powerless. And in that, he talked about parallel structures. And they're structures that are not intent on confrontation, but that simply seek to exist on their own terms. So you can see the echo of subversion there, right? There's no force. It's not overpowering the system. It's undermining the system. It's not overthrowing. It's undermining. Structures that are not intent on confrontation, but they simply seek to exist on their own terms. So they live in the system. They don't confront it, because what the point is there? There's no point in confronting a system when you know that you have no chance, right? There's no point in rebellion when you know that the rebellion is absolutely a lose-lose. You don't play games that you know you're going to lose, especially when it's a serious game like that. When it's not really a game, it's more political, more socio, more cultural. So then you live in these parallel structures. They're parallel to the normal societal structures. But these structures, instead of living by the lie that the corrupt systems, the corrupt structures want you to live by, you live by truth. You live, in society with other people who also are committed to living in truth. And you build this parallel structure, and what happens is that starts as just a little thing. It might be a community of 2 or 3 people. You're just all committed to living, this present life, this life of presence, of being with one another, of being with yourself, and of not giving into these distractions and these pleasures, choosing freedom over a corrupt system. And then that community of 2 or 3 somebody else somehow comes along and it grows to 4, and they tell a couple people and it grows to 6 or 8, and then it just keeps growing. And then these community members, they have these bonds, and they see how beautiful things are when they're true. And when there is presence, and this little community of people grows and grows until eventually it is the system, because it becomes the same size as the system, and then it just becomes the system. And it's hopefully, if the values are maintained, then it becomes a better system. So that's way more political than I usually get, I think. But I think I think it's an important thing to keep in mind and to try and work toward it. At least the subversion part, the part of just being away from all this distraction for a little while, and being present with yourself. You can learn so much that way, grow so much that way. So anyway, those are my thoughts for today. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to start a parallel structure, share it with somebody. And thanks for watching. Peace.